Hi there, this is Lennon. Here is a review of The Art of Lego Design by Jordan Schwartz. This book was released about a week or two ago, written by Lego fan Jordan Schwartz, who entered the community in the later half of the 2000s, and since then he has worked as a Lego designer for a year with the company before moving on to pursue his own studies. So, briefly about this book, it's more geared towards people who want to make their own creations, and therefore the book offers some advice, some inspiration, and some ideas for how you can go about doing that. So for experienced builders, you might find it interesting to see Jordan's perspective on designing his own creations, and also there are some interviews with other builders spaced out throughout this book. So this book is not a book about what it's like to design a Lego set for the company, but more so this book is about how to build your own Lego creation, and not just any Lego creation, but a creation that is deemed pretty good by the Lego community and fans. So let's go ahead and talk about the sections. The book is broken down into different sections based on techniques, and also based on themes such as space and buildings. So skipping the part about Lego and the history of the Lego company or something like that, which every book does to some extent when it's about Lego. Here he talks about his workspace, some of the tools that he uses, and some of the elements that he finds to be popular. And the next section talks about minifigures, and this page is pretty cool. He talks about how you can put a Technic ball onto a minifig's neck and therefore put on a helmet and move it around like the minifig has an actual posable neck, which I think is a good idea. So this brings me to the first little point that I want to kind of critique about the book. It includes a section on Fabuland figs and Scala figs and Technic figs, which from a glance, it's very interesting that you have that, but at the expense of leaving out a few other sections, which I think could be better to replace these sections. And the reason why I want to bring up this criticism is because Jordan, he is well known for including Fabuland minifigures and also Scalafigs in his own creations, but for the majority of the fans, that's something that they don't do in their creations. So I guess to put it a little bit harshly, this is a little superfluous read, but nevertheless, since this is a book that Jordan has written about his perspective on the art of Lego design, it's appropriate that he included these sections on what he chose to use in a lot of his creations. Next section about Lego minifigures, bricks, and a hint of some techniques that you can use, and some examples of techniques being used in creations, such as a cobblestone here, and then just a scattering of one by one round plates, building roofs, and also textures for rocks, for example. And the next section is about Lego patterns and motifs, otherwise known as mosaics. And here Jordan focuses primarily on cheese slopes, and in fact that's pretty much all that is mentioned in this section about mosaics. And there are some other sections, not sections, but techniques for mosaics that, in my opinion, are more useful to a builder who wants to get into mosaics, such as just the standard one by one plates or studs on a base plate, and using a computer software to generate the design for you. So that's something that's not mentioned in here, which I think will be helpful. But and considering the fact that Jordan has done a few of those in the past, I think it would have been better if he included a few examples of his own works on mosaics, and pretty simple and straightforward ones. So next section is about fabric elements, and again, this is a section that is very particular to the builder himself. Not too many people in the community has an emphasis on incorporating fabrics, capes, and ropes, rubber bands, and tires into their creations, and for this section, I think it's more interesting this as an FYI. This is what Jordan likes to use, and this is something that you can either get your own inspiration or just to get a more diverse taste of other builders' preferences. Not something that the entire community endorses, and not something that a lot of builders choose to do in their own, using their own creations. So I think Jordan justified that in a little section in the book, saying that again, this is he realizes that it's not something that the entire community does, but it's something that is included just for broadening of perspectives, and I think that's a very legit reason to have these sections in there. So next sections on sculpting, textures, and building organic elements, creatures, and then the Lowell Sphere by Bruce Lowell, which is an interview about how he came up with the idea, which is very interesting for me to read, and also some of his applications. So throughout the book, there are about a dozen or so interviews with builders who are iconic or well known for their models in that theme. So I think this is a very important section, a very fun section to include in the book for builders to or for readers to see what other builders are doing within that theme. So stylized models and Lego characters. So Jordan chose to interview Tyler, who definitely has a knack for making very expressive characters, and here are his thoughts on how he goes to approach that. Next section is about lighting, and Jordan has definitely used lights effectively in his creations, and I was thinking through this and I realized that there is not much talk about power functions or motorized elements, which I think are equally as important as lights. So leaving that out, I think, you know, or I guess including it would make the book better. So it makes sense since Jordan hasn't really used too much motorized elements in his creations. He might not feel comfortable giving examples of them. So the next section is about, let's see, perspectives, color, using different shades to in one creation to create a texture out of color, which I completely agree with. And then more advanced techniques, more color examples, and then this goes to talk about animals. Jordan definitely has an interest on building animals and also collecting taxidermy, so it makes sense that he channeled his interest to a section of his book and how he made some of the animals in these examples. And then he chose to include a builder who is very well known for very accurate representations of Lego animals. So next section is about scenery, trees, and the next section is about more characters, expression, articulation. And for this section, Jordan chose to include Ian Heath, who is a very well-known builder for building characters, known for his Bricks of Characters theme, which is pretty much anything that incorporates a like a little sculpture of a Lego character, of a character from any source, in fact. Next section is about cars, and Jordan has a huge interest with history, anything historical, so a lot of his models are focused on the past, and so there isn't much design on the modern automobile. So I guess that's why he included Adam Grabowski, who was a very skilled builder in cars, to kind of cover the little interview section there and expand the perspective that he has given previously on historical vehicles. So the next section is about watercraft, and next section is about buildings, which again kind of focus on the historical side of things, since Jordan is known for building Lego models from previous eras rather than modern or even future ones. So this is an interview with Luke Watkins on the castle theme, and I think that's a very good builder to choose, since he is very well known for his castle creations currently. Again, the next section on interiors, And on furniture, and who else to pick than Michael Jasper, who is the master of Lego furnitures. All of his models are extremely intricate and very clever. So the last section on science fiction, again, Jordan, even for science fiction, Jordan's focus was on a lot of retro bits of sci-fi, such as inspirations from previous retro sci-fi movies, for example. So his examples are not very definitive of the current sci-fi scene of a lot of futuristic spaceships. So it seems like I'm throwing out these criticisms, but you gotta take into account that this book was written by one person, and for one person, Jordan has built quite a broad range of themes. So it is definitely very impressive for someone who's a jack of all trades to single-handedly publish a book about building in all kinds of themes, from historical to spacecrafts, and so I definitely have to give him props for that. So for space, he appropriately chose Peter Morris and also Pierre Fesci for building sci-fi vehicles. And then the last section here is about dioramas, and Jordan picked Keith Goldman, who is an icon in the world of sci-fi dioramas, and he talks about some of the inspiration that he uses for his own creations. And then the last section is about photography, photo editing, and sharing your works on Flickr and getting criticism, which I think it's an important section, and I'm glad he touched on it, but it could be expanded, especially the photography and the photo editing section, which in my opinion could be a little bit better. His photos, for example, they're a little bit more exposed on the edges, and also some of the parts get kind of blurred out, such as the white, blending into the white. So he's not, his photos are definitely at a publishing quality, but in my opinion, he could have gotten someone to help him edit the photos to make them even better, since he is writing a book about it. So the photos in the book are not top-notch in my opinion, but they are definitely something good, high quality, if you are just a beginner builder and looking for examples of decent photos. So the last part is an index, and that's the end of the book. So overall, I think this book is great for new builders who want to get inspired and also see some examples about what other people have done in the community and how they have achieved that in terms of their thought process and whatnot. And this is definitely the go-to book for that purpose. In terms of experienced builders, this book will offer you a perspective on what Jordan has been doing with his creations, and lets you see what other builders in their interviews are going through in terms of their design processes. So definitely applications for both the novice and the experienced builders. And again, there are some sections left out, such as power functions, train, military, technique, bionicle, for example. But then again, I don't expect a book written by one person to be inclusive of every Lego theme. So overall, it's a pretty broad book, but certainly not one that is entirely complete. So I do recommend getting this book. It's an interesting read, and hopefully you'll find something useful from it. Hope you enjoy the review.